The mess hall aboard the massive alien warship buzzed with loud voices and cruel laughter. Dozens of alien soldiers from different worlds sat around metal tables, eating their evening meals and sharing stories. The ship was heading toward a small blue planet called Earth, and the soldiers were excited about their upcoming victory. Lieutenant Vex was a tall, green-skinned creature with sharp teeth and yellow eyes. He waved a small computer pad in the air as he spoke to his friends. "Listen to this crazy story the humans tell their children," he said with a nasty grin. "They have this tale about a man named Hercules who could lift mountains and kill monsters with his bare hands." The other aliens around the table started laughing. Commander Thale, who looked like a giant bug with 4 arms, clicked his mouth parts together in amusement. "That is so stupid," he said. "We scanned their planet. Humans are weak little creatures. They can barely lift their own body weight, and they think they have heroes who can move mountains." A blue-skinned alien named Officer Drek slammed his fist on the table, making the food trays jump. "I read about another one called Achilles. The humans say he was impossible to kill except for one spot on his foot. Can you believe it? They dream about being strong, because they know how weak they really are." More aliens joined conversation, each one sharing the silly human stories they had learned about. There were tales of warriors who fought against gods, heroes who never gave up even when facing terrible odds, and legends of humans doing impossible things. To the alien soldiers, these stories were just proof that humans lived in a fantasy world. "They tell stories about 300 soldiers holding back millions of enemies," laughed Lieutenant Vex. 300. We have over 50,000 warriors on this ship alone. These humans must be completely crazy to believe such nonsense. The aliens had studied Earth for months before planning their attack. They knew everything about human weapons, which were primitive compared to alien technology. They knew about human bodies, which were fragile and weak. They knew about human governments, which could not agree on anything. It would be an easy conquest. "The best part," said Commander Thale, "is that they still tell these old stories to their young ones. Instead of teaching them useful skills, they fill their heads with impossible dreams about heroes and magic." Officer Drek pulled up more files on his computer. "Look at this one about someone called Samurai. The humans say these warriors could cut through anything with their swords and never felt fear. But we know human metal is soft, and we have seen their brain scans show fear responses to the smallest dangers." The laughter grew louder as more aliens shared what they had learned. There were stories about Vikings who sailed across dangerous seas, Native American warriors who could track enemies for days, and Chinese fighters who could defeat armies with their bare hands. Every story seemed more ridiculous than the last. "Tomorrow, when we arrive at Earth and demand their surrender," said Lieutenant Vex, "they will probably pray to these fake heroes for help. Maybe they will ask Hercules to come save them. Or they will send their 300 Spartans," joked Commander Thale, causing another wave of laughter to roll through the mess hall. The aliens were so confident in their victory that they had already started planning how to divide up Earth's resources. The planet had good water, useful minerals, and perfect weather in many places. The humans would make decent slaves if they behaved themselves. What made the aliens most confident was their technology. Their ships could travel between stars, their weapons could destroy entire cities, and their shields could stop any attack the humans might try. Earth's most powerful weapons looked like toys compared to alien military equipment. "I almost feel sorry for them," said Officer Drek, though his tone suggested he did not feel sorry at all. Living in their dream world, telling stories about impossible heroes. They have no idea what real power looks like. Lieutenant Vex stood up and raised his drink cup. "To an easy victory and quick profits," he announced. All the other aliens raised their cups and cheered. As the celebration continued, none of the laughing soldiers noticed the old alien general standing quietly in the doorway. General Keth had gray skin and tired eyes that had seen many battles across the galaxy. Unlike his young officers, he was not laughing at the human stories. Instead, he looked worried and thoughtful. The general had lived long enough to remember things that younger aliens had forgotten. Deep in his mind, something about these human myths felt familiar and dangerous. But he could not quite remember why, and his officers seemed so sure of themselves. As the alien warship continued its journey toward Earth, The soldiers went to sleep dreaming of easy victory and great rewards. They had no idea that their target was not the primitive world they expected. In just a few hours, they would learn that some stories are not myths at all, but warnings from the past that should never be ignored. The ship flew through the darkness of space, carrying its cargo of confident soldiers toward a meeting with legends they thought were just funny stories. The giant alien warship Dominion's Edge stopped at the edge of Earth's solar system, surrounded by hundreds of smaller attack ships from 47 different alien worlds. General Kess stood on the command bridge, looking at the small blue planet through the main viewing screen. His gray fingers pressed buttons on the communication panel. "Attention, humans of planet Earth." His voice boomed across space toward the distant world. "You are now surrounded by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We represent 47 civilized worlds, and we have come to claim your planet. Surrender now, and your people will be allowed to live as our servants. Resist, and your species will be destroyed." The aliens waited for 12 long hours. Lieutenant Vex paced around the bridge, checking his weapons and making jokes about how scared the humans must be. Commander Thale used his 4 arms to operate multiple computer screens, scanning for any signs of human military activity. "They are probably having meetings right now," laughed Officer Drek, "fighting among themselves about whether to surrender or not. Humans can never agree on anything." Finally, a message came back from Earth. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfect alien language. "This is Admiral Day of the Earth Defense Force. We have carefully reviewed your offer surrender." The aliens leaned forward, expecting to hear the humans begging for mercy. Lieutenant Vex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Here it comes," he whispered. "We decline," said Admiral Day simply, and the communication ended. The silence on the alien bridge lasted for exactly 3 seconds before Lieutenant Vex started laughing. Did he just say no? Did that tiny human just refuse the entire galactic fleet? "Impossible," said Commander Thale. "They must not understand how hopeless their situation is. Scan the system. Show me their pathetic defense force." What happened next made every alien on the bridge stop laughing. The long-range sensors suddenly lit up with dozens of red warning lights. Ships were appearing everywhere around them, but not from the direction of Earth. Contact from Asteroid Field 7 called out the sensor operator. Multiple human ships emerging from the rocks. "That's impossible," shouted Lieutenant Vex. "Nothing can hide in those asteroid fields. The radiation would kill any crew." More reports came flooding in. Human ships were rising from the crushing atmosphere of Jupiter, where the pressure should have destroyed them instantly. Others emerged from Saturn's rings, moving between chunks of ice and rock like they belonged there. Most shocking of all, several human vessels climbed up from the surface of the sun itself, their hulls glowing white-hot but somehow still functioning. "How are they surviving in the solar corona?" demanded Commander Thale, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. "Those temperatures would melt our best armor." The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Their ships looked old and crude compared to alien technology, but they flew like living creatures. A small human fighter pilot named Min performed an attack run that should have been impossible, diving straight down at a court destroyer while spinning his ship like a drill. "He's going to crash," said Officer Drek. "Stupid human doesn't know how to fly properly." But Min's fighter punched through the alien ship's shields like they were made of paper. His small vessel somehow created a hole big enough to fly through, and the massive destroyer exploded behind him as he emerged from the other side. Similar reports came from all around the battle area. Human pilot Hay flew her damaged ship in patterns that made alien computers crash when they tried to predict her movements. Captain Sull led a group of human soldiers who boarded an alien cruiser and fought their way through 3 decks of defenders, singing old war songs the entire time. "This makes no sense," said Lieutenant Vex, staring at his tactical display. "Our weapons are more advanced. Our shields are stronger. How are they doing this?" The communication channels filled with human voices talking to each other during the battle. But instead of normal military commands, they kept saying strange things that referenced their old myths and legends. "Remember Thermopylae," shouted one human commander as his ship rammed into an alien battleship. "For Sparta," yelled another as she led a boarding party onto an enemy vessel. Like the Vikings of old, called out a third human pilot as he performed another impossible flying maneuver. General Keth listened to these messages with growing unease. The young human voices were filled with joy and excitement, as if they had been waiting their whole lives for this fight. They spoke about their ancient heroes not like they were stories, but like they were instruction manuals. After 6 hours of battle, the alien fleet had lost 12 ships and hundreds of soldiers. They had destroyed only 3 human vessels, and those crews had fought until their ships exploded around them, taking alien boarders with them into death. "General," said Commander Thale quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans are not behaving like the intelligence report suggested." General Keth nodded slowly, his old eyes troubled by memories he could not quite recall. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "We withdraw at a safe distance. I need to consult the archives before we continue this campaign." The alien fleet pulled back, leaving the humans to celebrate their first victory, while their enemies tried to understand what had just happened. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle, and the command center aboard Dominion's Edge felt like a different place. The confident laughter was gone, replaced by worried whispers and nervous glances at the tactical displays. What should have been a quick conquest had turned into a grinding war that made no sense to anyone. General Keth sat in his command chair, looking older than his many years. Dark circles under his eyes showed he had not been sleeping well. Every day brought new reports that challenged everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. "Daily briefing," he said in a tired voice. "What happened overnight?" Commander Thale stepped forward, his forearms holding multiple data tablets. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by confusion and worry. The human transport ship Alamo was surrounded by our forces in Sector 7. We demanded their surrender, offering safe passage for civilians. "And?" asked Lieutenant Vex, though his voice lacked its usual mockery. "They refused. Captain Bowie and his crew of 37 held us off for 14 hours. When their ship was finally destroyed, they took 2 of our cruisers with them." Thale paused, checking his notes. Before the end, we intercepted his final message. He kept repeating, "Remember the Alamo," and something about "no quarter asked, none given." Officer Drek added his own report. Similar incident in the asteroid belt. Human soldier Wu was the only survivor when we overran defensive position 12. Intelligence said he should have surrendered. Instead, he held that bunker alone for 2 full days against 300 of our best warriors. "How is that possible?" demanded Lieutenant Vex. "1 human against 300 trained soldiers?" He turned the entire position into a maze of traps and ambush points. Drek continued. Our assault teams found messages he had carved into the walls. Things like Molenlab and "they shall not pass." We still don't know what those phrases mean, but our troops started refusing to enter the bunker after the first day. General Keth rubbed his temples, feeling a headache growing. "What about our boarding operations?" Commander Thale's expression grew even more troubled. "Complete failure, sir. Every time we capture a human ship, the crew turns it into a death trap. They know their own vessel so well they can fight us in the dark, in damaged sections, even in areas without air to breathe." "The worst incident was yesterday," added Officer Drek. "We boarded the human destroyer Yorktown with 400 Marines. Captain Park and her crew of 80 somehow killed or wounded over half our boarding party before their ship was destroyed." "How?" asked General Keth, though he was beginning to fear the answer. "They fought like demons, sir. Even when wounded, they kept attacking. Medical teams report that humans continue fighting with injuries that would kill most of our species. We found 1 human engineer who had lost an arm, but was still setting explosive traps for our soldiers." Lieutenant Vex pulled up more reports on his display screen. "It gets worse, General. We've been monitoring their communications during battles. They don't talk like normal military units. Listen to this recording." The speakers crackled with a human voice, speaking calmly, while explosions could be heard in the background. "This is Commander Jean aboard Thermopylae. We are surrounded and outnumbered, but we will hold this position. Remember the 300. Remember what Leonidas taught us. Today we dine in hell." "What does any of that mean?" asked Commander Thale. Who is Leonidas? What are the 300? They reference these ancient stories constantly, said Vex. Vikings, samurai, Spartans, Celts, Romans. But they don't talk about them like myths. They discuss these ancient warriors like they're following a battle plan written thousands of years ago. Officer Drek brought up another recording. This one is from Pylahe before she flew her damaged fighter into our battleship Dread Victory. She was singing some kind of war song in her native language, but our translators picked up references to ancestors watching an honorable death in battle. General Keth listened to report after report of similar incidents. Human crews that fought until their ships broke apart around them. Soldiers who turned every retreat into an ambush. Pilots who performed maneuvers that should have been impossible, guided by tactical principles that predated space flight by millennia. There's something else, General, said Commander Thale quietly. Our psychological warfare division tried to break human morale by broadcasting surrender demands and threats. The humans responded by sending us their own broadcasts. What kind of broadcasts? Asked Keth. Stories, sir. They told us tales about their ancient heroes, about warriors who faced impossible odds and never gave up, about last stands and heroic sacrifices. But they didn't tell them like entertainment. They spoke like they were sharing military history. Lieutenant Vex looked up from his reports. General, I'm beginning to think we made a serious mistake. These humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They seem to actually enjoy being outnumbered and surrounded. General Keth stood slowly, his joints aching with age and worry. Deep in his memory, something was stirring. Ancient warnings that he had dismissed as legend. Stories told by his own grandfather about species that were too dangerous to fight directly. I need access to the deep archives, he said finally. The sealed records from the early days of the Galactic Council. His officers exchanged worried glances. Nobody had opened those files in over 1,000 years. Sir, are you sure that's necessary? Asked Commander Thale. General Keth looked at the tactical display, showing human ships moving with impossible coordination and courage. I'm beginning to suspect that everything we know about humans is wrong. And if I'm right about what I think I'm remembering, we may have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. General Keth's private quarters were darker than usual as he sat before the ancient archive terminal. The old machine hummed and clicked as it connected to data storage systems that had not been accessed for over 1,000 years. His gray hand shook slightly as he entered the highest security codes, passwords that only a few beings in the galaxy even knew existed. The first file that appeared on his screen made his blood turn cold. The title read, Emergency Council Session 847,291, The Human Problem, Maximum Security Classification. Below was a warning in red letters that said, Access Restricted, Galactic Threat Level Omega. General Keth had never seen a threat level Omega classification before. In all his years of military service, the highest threat he had encountered was level 7. He pressed the access button with a trembling finger. The file opened to reveal meeting records from the ancient Galactic Council, back when 49 different species had worked together to govern the known universe. The first document was a transcript of an emergency session, and as Keth read the opening lines, he felt his heart begin to race. Council Chairman Vexthal speaking. We are gathered today to address the human situation. After careful study and 3 years of warfare, we have reached a terrible conclusion. The human species cannot be allowed to remain in contact with galactic civilization. General Keth scrolled down, reading testimony from military commanders who had fought against humans thousands of years ago. Their reports sounded exactly like the battle accounts he had been receiving for the past 3 weeks. Admiral Thakrin of the Crystalline Hegemony reporting, Human Warrior UK has destroyed our entire 7th Fleet, using only primitive weapons and impossible tactics. Our soldiers refused to board human vessels after what happened to the Star Crusher. The humans turned that ship into a nightmare maze where our troops died in ways we cannot explain. Another report caught his attention. General Morthack of the Netherian Empire. I must protest our continued engagement with the human forces. Their leader, Captain Ben, has achieved 17 victories against impossible odds. Yesterday, his force of 200 humans defeated our army of 50,000. I do not understand how, but my troops are beginning to believe the humans cannot be killed. Page after page contains similar accounts. Human commander Ran who supposedly fought and killed a godlike entity with nothing but primitive weapons and unbreakable will. Fighter pilot Jew who flew her damaged ship through the heart of a star to destroy an enemy base. Warrior Kim who held a mountain pass alone for 7 days against an entire invasion force. The more General Keth read, the more he realized these were not the myths his soldiers had been laughing about. These were historical records, military reports, and eyewitness accounts of actual events. Every human legend that Lieutenant Vex had mock corresponded to real battles fought by real people. Council Decision 847,291 final. Read the next document. After extensive debate, we had concluded that the human species represents an unacceptable threat to galactic peace and stability. However, attempts at total extermination have failed. Every military action against humans has resulted in their adaptation and increased resistance. Genocide appears to make them stronger, not weaker. General Keth felt sweat forming on his skin as he continued reading. Alternative solution. The species known as humans will be relocated to a distant, isolated world designated as Sol 3, also called Earth by the humans themselves. This planet is far from established trade routes and contains enough natural challenges to occupy their attention indefinitely. The final document in the file was marked as the official conclusion of the human problem. By unanimous vote, the Galactic Council hereby declares the Sol system off-limits to all member species. Under no circumstances should contact be reestablished with the relocated human population. This decision is made not out of cruelty, but out of necessity for the survival of galactic civilization. A personal note was attached from the council chairman. To future generations who may discover these records, the humans were not destroyed because we lacked the power to kill them. They were exiled because we learned that humans become more dangerous when faced with extinction. They adapt, they learn, and they never forget. Earth was chosen as their prison because it is isolated, dangerous, and far from our worlds. If you are reading this because contact has been reestablished, flee immediately. Do not attempt to negotiate. Do not try to understand them. Simply run and pray they do not follow. At the bottom of the file was a list of 49 species that had voted for human exile. General Keth recognized many of the names: the Crystalline Hegemony, the Netherian Empire, the Vorth Federation. All of them were civilizations that no longer existed, their names found only in ancient history books. With growing horror, General Keth realized what had happened to those 49 species. They had not fallen to war, plague, or natural disaster. They had been forgotten by history because the humans had eventually found them. The final entry in the archive was a simple warning, updated automatically every few centuries. Current status: Sol system remains quarantined. No contact detected. Human population estimated to have grown significantly. Recommend continued isolation protocols. Update: long-range scans suggest humans have developed space travel capabilities. Alert level raised to maximum. Update: human vessels detected beyond Sol system. May the gods have mercy on us all. General Keth sat back in his chair, staring at the screen in absolute terror. His invasion fleet had not discovered a primitive world to conquer. They had broken open the cage of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. And now the humans knew they were no longer alone in the universe. The emergency briefing room aboard Dominion's Edge was packed with officers from every ship in the alien fleet. General Keth stood at the front, his gray face looking older than anyone had ever seen him. The holographic displays around the room showed ancient documents, battle reports, and star maps that dated back thousands of years. What I am about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about this war. General Keth began, his voice heavy with exhaustion and fear. The humans we have been fighting are not a primitive species. They're the descendants of the most dangerous warriors the galaxy has ever known. Lieutenant Vex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Sir, with respect, we have been fighting them for weeks. They use old technology and simple tactics. How can it be dangerous? General Keth activated the main display, showing the ancient Galactic Council records. Because every myth we laughed at was real history. Achilles, Hercules, The 300 Spartans. These were not stories. These were military reports filed by our ancestors who fought against these same humans thousands of years ago. Commander Thales' arms trembled as he read the documents appearing on his personal screen. The crystalline hegemony, the Netherian Empire, these civilizations tried to destroy humanity and failed. General Kett confirmed. 49 species united against the humans. The greatest military alliance in galactic history could not defeat them. So instead, they made a terrible decision. They exiled humanity to Earth, hoping that isolation and a harsh planet would keep them contained. Officer Drek looked confused. But sir, if they were so dangerous, why didn't our ancestors just kill them all? Because they tried, Keth replied grimly. Every attempt to exterminate humans only made them stronger, more creative, more determined. The ancient records show that genocide transformed humans into something even worse than they were before. The room fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. Outside the briefing room windows, they could see human ships in the distance, moving with the same impossible grace they had witnessed for weeks. The humans we face today, General Kett continued, are the children of warriors who survived exile on one of the harshest planets in the galaxy. Earth should have broken them. Instead, it trained them. For thousands of years, they have been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. Lieutenant Vex's voice was barely a whisper. Every human myth we studied corresponds to these ancient battle reports. Every single one. The stories they tell their children are not fantasies. They are instruction manuals passed down through generations. When human pilotmen performed that impossible ramming attack, he was following tactics developed by his ancestors thousands of years ago. The proximity alarm suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. Commander Thale quickly accessed the sensor displays, and his compound eyes widened in terror. General, new human ships are approaching. They're different from the ones we've been fighting. On the main screen, a formation of human vessels appeared that looked nothing like the crude ships they had encountered before. These were sleek, advanced, and moved with predatory grace. The lead ship was massive, easily matching the size of General Kett's flagship. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. The main screen filled with the image of a human woman, wearing a military uniform covered in symbols that somehow looked both ancient and futuristic. Her dark eyes showed the same calm confidence they had heard in Admiral Day's voice weeks earlier. This is Admiral Hyun of the Earth's 1st Expeditionary Fleet, she said in perfect galactic standard. You have 30 minutes to withdraw all forces beyond the edge of our solar system. After that deadline, we will no longer be asking politely. The transmission ended, leaving the briefing room in stunned silence. Lieutenant Vex stared at the screen where Admiral Hyun's face had been. 1st Expeditionary Fleet? That implies there are others. General Keth nodded slowly. Of course there are others. Humans always plan ahead. What we have been fighting was never their main force. It was just a local defense fleet. Commander Thale was frantically checking sensor readings. General, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the inner solar system. Whatever is coming our way, it's using technology we don't recognize. Ancient human technology, upgraded by thousands of years of isolation and improvement, Keth explained. They had all this time to perfect their weapons, their tactics, their entire approach to warfare. Officer Drek looked at the countdown timer that had appeared on all their screens. 28 minutes remaining, General. What are your orders? General Keth looked around the room at his terrified officers. These were veteran warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but now they looked like frightened children. The realization of what they had awakened was finally sinking in. All ships, emergency retreat protocols. Maximum speed toward the galactic rim. Send coded transmissions to every member of the Alliance. Sol system is now classified as forbidden territory. No ship is to approach within 50 light years of Earth. Sir, should we negotiate? Asked Commander Thale. Perhaps we can reach some kind of agreement. General Keth shook his head as he watched more human ships appearing on the sensors. You don't negotiate with humans. You either defeat them completely or you run. Our ancestors tried the first option and failed. We're choosing the second. As the alien fleet began its panic retreat, Emergency broadcasts spread across the galaxy on all frequencies. The message was simple but terrifying. The humans are awake. They remember everything. Avoid Sol System at all costs. They are no longer contained. Behind them, the human ships watched silently, letting them go. But everyone in the fleeing alien fleet knew this was not mercy, it was patience. The humans were simply deciding what to do next. The galaxy's greatest nightmare had awakened. It was no longer alone on a distant planet.